Recently, NASA released the sharpest images ever taken of a visitor from outside our solar system. Its name, you've definitely heard it before, 3I Atlas. In the photo, it appears as nothing more than a blurry blue smudge with a long, dusty tail, surrounded by stars streaked into lines because the telescope was tracking the comet's motion. At first glance, it looks completely ordinary, just a faint dot of light against a star-filled sky. But don't let that ghostly, hazy appearance fool you. Scientists say this is one of the oldest objects humanity has ever observed, possibly billions of years old, born in a place completely outside our solar system, and it will never return. But the image is only half the story. What has kept astronomers up all night isn't the picture itself, but something invisible that the naked eye can't see, the radio signals that 3I Atlas is emitting. In South Africa's Karoo Desert, the MeerKAT radio telescope made up of 64 antennas picked up something very strange, a signal at around 1.665 megahertz, right in the frequency range characteristic of the hydroxyl radical, OH, a byproduct of water breaking apart. To put it simply, if you want to know where water exists in the universe, you look for traces of OH. And for the first time in history, we have detected a radio signal of this kind, coming from an interstellar comet, a true object born beyond our solar system. Now, imagine this. It's 4 a.m. You're asleep, and your phone buzzes. On the screen is just one message from a colleague at the observatory. We just picked up a radio signal from 3I Atlas. If you're a radio astronomer, this isn't just a text message. It's an invitation to step into one of the strangest moments in modern science. And remember, 1I Oumuamua, the first interstellar visitor, was completely silent. 2I Borisov, the second one, didn't have much to say either. But 3I Atlas, as it skimmed past our solar system, it was speaking in a radio voice we could actually hear.
Let's start with a simple picture. A radio telescope doesn't hear the universe the way human ears hear music. It measures the intensity of radio waves at different frequencies and draws a graph. Horizontal axis is frequency, vertical axis is strength. Most of the time, the line is pretty flat with a bit of speckled noise, the background hiss of space. Every now and then, at certain frequencies, sharp little spikes rise up like thin pillars on flat ground. Those are what we call spectral lines. Every atom and every molecule in the universe has its own unique set of spectral lines, like the barcode on a milk carton. Scan the barcode and the computer instantly knows what kind of milk it is. In astronomy, you scan the light or radio waves from a gas cloud, and if you see the right lines at the right frequencies, you know exactly what's inside: hydrogen, helium, CO, ammonia, or water. In the case of 3I Atlas, what MeerKAT saw were two tiny pillars around 1665 and 1667 megahertz. Those dry numbers alone are enough for radio astronomers to shout that's the unmistakable signature of the hydroxyl radical, OH. And in the world of comets, OH is almost always the smoking gun of water being torn apart. Here's how it works. As 3I Atlas got closer to the Sun, its icy surface, especially the water ice, started to sublimate. That water vapor formed a hazy atmosphere around the nucleus called the coma. Ultraviolet light from the Sun slammed into it, smashing H2O molecules into fragments, H, O, and OH. Those OH radicals don't sit still. They spin, vibrate, change energy states, and in the process they absorb and emit radio waves at very precise frequencies, including exactly those two lines at 1665 and 1667 megahertz.
In plain language, imagine a boiling kettle. The rising steam cloud is the coma, and the water molecules are being yanked apart, flying everywhere, occasionally making a screech we can't hear with our ears. What MeerKAT caught is that screech at radio frequencies from the OH radicals. Not speech, not Morse code, just the sound of water being tortured by sunlight. This isn't new for solar system comets. For decades, astronomers have used OH lines to figure out how much water comets like Halley, Hale-Bopp, or the various sun grazers you saw in the news were spitting out. Measure the strength of the OH lines, plug the numbers into chemical and dynamical models, and you get kilograms of water per second. It's a very everyday tool in astronomy, a cosmic water flow meter. The new part is that this time the object isn't a local comet, it's an interstellar one, a chunk of ice and dust born under completely different conditions around a completely different star, maybe dozens or hundreds of light years away. And when we pointed MeerKAT at 3I Atlas, that same old water meter ticked exactly the way it always does. OH singing at 1665 and 1667 MHz, just like it does for our own comets. In other words, 3I Atlas's water behaves exactly like ours. The quantum laws, the energy transitions that govern how water molecules and hydroxyl radicals interact with light, don't care which star system you came from. A block of ice formed 7 to 10 billion years ago on the far side of the Milky Way, when it passes our sun, still broadcasts the exact same OH signatures we know how to read. That's the strange beauty of physics. No matter how alien the universe gets, the basic language of atoms and molecules remains universal.
Now back to the burning question from the start of the video. So is this alien sending a message? The answer, at least based on the data we have right now, is no. There are several very clear reasons. First, the signal from 3I Atlas is not narrow and sharp like the WOW signal. It is broader, weaker, exactly the kind of signal you expect from a cloud of molecules spinning and colliding chaotically. If you zoom into the spectrum, you don't see a lone spike sitting in a quiet region. You see a line with width that follows the velocity and temperature of the gas. It looks like the characteristic noise of a physical phenomenon, not a precisely tuned artificial beep. Second, this signal didn't just appear once and vanish. Track it for hours, for days, and you'll see the OH from 3I Atlas rise and fall with the comet's activity. When it gets closer to the sun, more water sublimates, the signal gets stronger. When it moves away, everything fades. That's continuous behavior tied to the comet's physics, not a short burst message. Third, the 1665-1667 MHz frequency of OH is something nature uses all the time. Molecular clouds, star-forming regions, even some comets in our own solar system have been detected emitting OH at those exact frequencies. If you were an alien civilization trying to send an unusual signal, you would avoid frequencies the universe already uses for all kinds of chemical noise. The 1420 MHz hydrogen line in the WOW signal, therefore, sounds much smarter. 1665 MHz is like shouting in the middle of an already noisy market. But saying that doesn't mean the signal from 3I Atlas is boring. On the contrary, it is extremely valuable. For the first time, we are hearing water on an object born outside the solar system. What used to be just models, surely there are comets out there with water and organic chemistry too, now has a living witness in the data. Here it is, OH at 1665 MHz, coming from an icy old man that has been wandering out there for billions of years. From the intensity of the OH lines, research teams are starting to estimate how much water 3I Atlas is releasing, how fast the gas is escaping, and whether it has more water or less water compared to the comets we're familiar with. If the numbers fall in the same ballpark, and so far they seem to, then it strongly supports a powerful idea. The basic building blocks of comets, and possibly of rocky planets in other star systems, aren't very different from the recipe our own solar system used. Don't forget, water isn't just something to drink, it's the medium where complex chemistry happens. Add the organic molecules that other telescopes like JWST can detect in the infrared, and a clearer picture starts to emerge. Out there, in distant star systems, packages full of water and organic chemicals have been getting ejected into space for billions of years, drifting between the stars, ready to slam into any young planet they happen to meet along the way. And at this point, the story is no longer just about eavesdropping on an interstellar comet. It's about touching a much bigger question. Is life something that only happened once on Earth, or is it the inevitable result of a universe that keeps sprinkling water and organic molecules onto every cool rocky surface it can find? We'll dive deeper into that question later when we talk about panspermia, the idea that life could be shipped all across the Milky Way by objects exactly like 3I Atlas. But before we fly that high, there's one more thing we have to face in this story. Even though everything sounds very natural, the behavior of 3I Atlas still has some strange details, some deviations from the norm that make certain scientists uneasy, and the UFO community quietly excited, namely unusual brightness changes, jets of material shooting backward, a weird tail structure, things that make 3I Atlas look not like the well-behaved textbook comet. And that's exactly what the next part is about, the unlike anyone else behavior of 3I Atlas.
For 3I Atlas, long before anyone even dreamed of picking up a signal from an interstellar comet, there was a summer night in 1977 that has haunted the entire search for extraterrestrial life for nearly half a century. That night, a giant radio telescope called the Big Ear, located in Ohio, USA, was silently scanning the sky. It didn't look with eyes, it listened for whispers in the radio band. A few days later, astronomer Jerry Amon, who was then volunteering for the CD project, was reviewing long printouts that looked like supermarket receipts. Each line was a column of numbers showing signal intensity over time, usually just bland 1s, 2s, 3s, the background noise of the universe. But on that night, amid all the meaningless digits, he saw a strange sequence standing out like a nail, 6EQJU5. It shot way above the noise floor, exactly the shape a strong narrowband signal from very far away would have. Amon circled the sequence and wrote two simple words in red pen beside it: "Wow." From that moment on, history has called it the WOW signal. Technically, the signal appeared at about 1420.4 megahertz, right next to the famous 21-centimeter hydrogen line, the frequency neutral hydrogen emits when its electron flips spin. This is a premium channel in radio astronomy. The International Telecommunication Union even reserves a protected band around it for science, banning commercial broadcasts. If an intelligent civilization wanted to send a beacon into space, 1420 megahertz is pretty much the most logical frequency they could pick. Hydrogen is the most common element, and every radio astronomer knows exactly where to listen. What made the WOW even more suspicious was its shape. Big Ear was a drift scan telescope. It stayed still while Earth's rotation dragged the sky across its beam. Any point in the sky stayed in the beam for exactly 72 seconds, rising for the first 12 seconds, peaking, then falling for the last 12. If a distant radio lighthouse were shining continuously, it would print exactly that 72-second bell curve. And guess what? The WOW signal fit perfectly. Rise, peak, fall, as if some faraway transmitter had casually drifted across our listening beam. Immediately afterward, they pointed back at the same coordinates, dozens, hundreds of times. Nothing. WOW never repeated. Not a satellite, not an aircraft, not a military test transmission, at least according to all public information. No exploding star, no galactic pulsar, no known object lined up with the timing. Half a century later, the WOW signal remains one of SETI's most frustrating clues. Clean enough, beautiful enough, textbook enough to make you suspect extraterrestrial intelligence, but with nowhere near enough data to conclude anything. Even Jerry Amon, the man who wrote WOW, spent his whole life staying extremely cautious. We should not draw vast conclusions from one tiny piece of data. Countless theories have been thrown out to clear the universe's name: Earth-based interference bouncing off space junk, off-frequency military signals. Even for a while, people blamed comet tails, clouds of hydrogen around comets passing through that patch of sky. But later analyses ruled most of them out. The comets present at the time weren't in the right beam, and they couldn't produce such a strong narrow signal at 1420 megahertz. More recently, one team suggested the WOW might have come from a cold hydrogen cloud suddenly flaring up when excited by radiation from a passing star, a natural firework at exactly the hydrogen frequency. That paper is still being debated. No one dares say case closed 100%. The one thing that is almost certain is that the source lay in the direction of the constellation Sagittarius, close to but not exactly at the galactic center. Because Big Ear had two slightly offset horns, we have two possible sky positions, but both fall in a narrow region about 19 degrees off the galactic plane and 24 to 25 degrees from the galactic center. In plain language, it's a specific neighborhood in the sky, not a precise star. Then time passed. Big Ear was dismantled. SETI moved on to newer telescopes. The WOW signal became the stuff of books, documentaries, podcasts, a cold case in the cosmic detective archive, an unsolved mystery with no new victims. Until the name 3I Atlas appeared in the news in 2025. When astronomers started tracing 3I Atlas's orbit backward, far into the past, an intriguing detail emerged. If you extend its trajectory far enough back, on the sky, it appears to come from the same general neighborhood, in Sagittarius, the same broad region where the WOW signal originated in 1977. Picture this: out of the entire starry sky, the WOW flashed from one patch, and nearly 50 years later, an ancient interstellar comet named 3I Atlas comes barreling in from roughly the same direction. That was enough to set human imagination on fire. Some articles, videos, even a few adventurous scientists hinted, could 3I Atlas be connected to the WOW? Is this the same story stretching across half a century? Harvard astrophysicist Avi-Loeb, famous for his bold ideas about Oumuamua, suggested that studying 3I Atlas thoroughly might give us new clues about past signals like WOW. It sounds almost too perfect for a movie script. 1977, a mysterious signal from Sagittarius. 2025, an old man interstellar comet, possibly wandering since the Milky Way was young, arrives from the same direction while emitting radio signals tied to water.
If this were a detective novel, this would be the moment the detective taps the desk. These two cases might be related. But this isn't a detective novel, it's science, so we have to kill the excitement a little. First, the Sagittarius region is huge. Saying same constellation is an oversimplification. That patch of sky can hold hundreds of billions of stars, countless gas clouds, comets, and objects of all kinds. The fact that a strange radio signal in 1977 and an ancient interstellar comet in 2025 both appear from Earth's viewpoint to come from that broad area is not enough to say they are physically linked. Some estimates put the probability of such an angular coincidence below 1%, which sounds rare, but given the vast number of astronomical events, coincidences like this aren't exactly cosmic destiny. Second, the signals are completely different in nature. WOW was a strong narrowband one-off burst at 1420 MHz, the hydrogen line, lasting exactly 72 seconds and then gone, with no other signatures we could detect. The signal from 3I Atlas, on the other hand, is Oumuamua absorption lines at 1665 and 1667 MHz, produced when sunlight splits water molecules from the comet into hydroxyl radicals that absorb radio waves at their characteristic frequencies. That's ordinary comet chemistry, the same thing we've seen in solar system comets, just happening this time around in interstellar visitor. In other words, WOW is a mysterious ping on the hydrogen frequency, origin still unknown, natural or artificial. 3I Atlas is simply outgassing water, and we're hearing that outgassing on the OH frequency. One is an unsolved mystery, the other is a perfectly explainable object right in front of us. Claiming they're the same perpetrator is jumping way beyond the evidence. Third and most important, the scientific community does not currently treat 3I Atlas as the explanation for WOW. Most astronomers see them as two separate files in the cosmic mystery drawer, with no evidence yet to staple them together. The speculation connecting them is fun for storytelling and grabbing attention, but remains imaginative hypothesis, not scientific conclusion. So why are we still telling the WOW ghost in 3I Atlas story in this video? Because it reveals something very human. We hate coincidences. Whenever the universe throws us two weird puzzle pieces pointing in roughly the same direction, a radio signal, the oldest interstellar comet ever seen, our brains instantly try to snap them together. That's the detective instinct. Never ignore a coincidence, even if in the end it's just, well, a coincidence. And that's exactly why 3I Atlas is so valuable, not because it solves WOW, but because it gives us the chance to do what 1977 couldn't. This time, we know the suspect is coming. We have its orbit, composition, radio signature, and an entire modern fleet of telescopes, radio, optical, infrared watching it. We get to dissect an interstellar comet in real time, and from that knowledge, look back at cold cases like WOW with wiser eyes. In the next part, we'll set the ghosts and coincidences aside and do what science does best: decode the signal. Specifically, what exactly is the radio signal that MeerKAT just caught from 3I Atlas? How can a single thin line at 1665 MHz let astronomers confidently declare there was water there and the chemistry of life is not unique to Earth?
If we treat the profile of 3I Atlas as a cosmic detective case, then the behavior section is definitely covered in red underlines. Because although every piece of data we have so far shows it is a natural comet, the way it has behaved while passing through the solar system is anything but well behaved. First, the brightness story. From mid-September to late October, as 3I Atlas moved from about 2 AU to perihelion at 1.36 AU, solar observatories like SOHO, Stereo A, and GOES-19 recorded an unusual brightness surge. It brightened much faster than models predicted, equivalent to brightness scaling with distance to the Sun to the power of 7.5, far steeper than normal comets. Not only brighter, its color also played a shape-shifting game. Initially, optical observations showed it slightly red, like most dusty comets. A few weeks later, as activity increased, the coma turned green from glowing carbon gases, C2, C3. Then, after perihelion, when it emerged from behind the Sun, new images revealed a glaring blue light, completely different from the original faint red, a classic sign of CO+, ionized carbon monoxide, fluorescing in the solar wind. In tabloid drama language, it sounds perfect for shouting, "It is changing color!" But in physics language, this is evidence of different ice layers being peeled off one by one. Farther out, the harder to sublimate ices, CO2, CO, activate first. Closer in, water joins. Then a CO burst or fragment breakup releases a flood of CO+ that dyes the whole coma blue. Anomalous? Yes.
Against physics? Not really. Just a volatile-rich comet thrashing around pretty hard. Then comes its tail, another strange chapter. In many images from amateur astronomers in Hubble, 3I Atlas does not have just one tail, but several. A long, thin ion tail stretching away from the sun, a traditional dust tail, and especially an anti-tail, a tail pointing toward the sun, as if poking straight at it. If you only look at the picture without knowing the mechanism, it is very easy to think this is a stream of material shooting back toward the sun like some kind of braking engine. In reality, anti-tails have been seen on several solar system comets before. The geometry is this. Larger, heavier dust grains are pushed less by solar radiation pressure, so instead of flying straight backward, they linger near the comet's orbital plane, forming a thick dust sheet. When Earth reaches the exact position to look edge-on along that sheet, we see a bright line that looks like a tail pointing sunward, just an illusion of perspective. Simulations for 3I Atlas show exactly that, an extended coma pointing sunward around 3.8 AU, fully explained by dust dynamics. Still, one has to admit the anti-tail on 3I Atlas is unusually beautiful and sharp, to the point it has become one of the most frequently listed anomalies. Images taken on November 16th and 17th even show a razor-sharp anti-tail together with an ion tail millions of kilometers long, plus a few small gas jets, overall making it look like a bristling creature roaring at the sun. Then there is the non-gravitational acceleration, a phrase perfect for pouring fuel on the fire. Refined orbital data from JPL show that the motion of 3I Atlas does not perfectly follow a gravity-only model. There is a small extra acceleration component slightly deviating from the ideal path. Media instantly called it rocket-like thrust, unusual maneuver, and quite a few headlines went so far as to suggest it was steering itself. But if you ask any comet researcher, they will say this is very familiar. Almost all highly active comets show some level of non-gravitational acceleration. When ice sublimates unevenly, for example, one side richer in CO2 or more irregular in shape, the escaping gas jets create a tiny push, like mini thrusters firing backward. For 3I Atlas, a recent archive paper shows that simply assuming asymmetric CO and CO2 outgassing with a slightly odd nucleus shape perfectly matches the observed acceleration, no jet engines or mysterious technology required. Yet when you put all of this together, unusual brightness surge, shift to blinding blue, sun-pointing anti-tail, measurable non-gravitational acceleration, it is no wonder why Harvard astrophysicist Avi-Loeb compiled it into a list of 7 to 8 anomalies, scored it on his Loeb scale, and once jokingly said there is a 40% chance it's some form of alien technology.
And there is more. The chemistry of 3I Atlas adds a few more lines to the weird behavior section. VLT, Keck, and other big telescopes detected water vapor around it, a small amount of CO, very abundant CO2, cyanide, CN, and especially nickel, Ni, emission lines. Some popular articles ran headlines like "Pure nickel, no iron, pure nickel without accompanying iron," because normally these two elements are born together in supernovae. Here, caution is needed. Sensational headlines love comparing the nickel in 3I Atlas to industrial alloys or too clean to be natural. But when you read the actual scientific papers, the picture becomes less dramatic.
"3I Atlas is indeed CO2-rich and has unusual nickel signals compared to most solar system comets, but still within the range that exotic chemical models, for example nickel carbonyl compounds forming in extremely CO-rich environments, can explain without having to invoke alien metallurgy." To sum up, if you want to write a list of the not-like-anyone behavior of 3I Atlas, you could note it brightens unusually fast as it approaches the sun and changes color through several phases, ending with a blinding blue flash. It shows off multiple tails at once, including a sun-pointing anti-tail that looks exactly like a jet shooting backward. It has measurable non-gravitational acceleration that nudges its orbit slightly away from pure gravity, but the amount is just right to be explained by outgassing. It possesses a rather odd chemical recipe, CO2 dominant, moderate water and CO, CN present, and strange nickel signatures. And when you hand all that to someone with a cosmic Sherlock Holmes mindset like Loeb, you get very bold hypotheses: disguised probe, hypernatural mimic, high-tech scout. Those hypotheses are exciting, spark the imagination,
perfect for podcasts, talk shows, or YouTube videos. But the boundary of science is right here. No data yet forces us to conclude the 3I Atlas is technology. On the contrary, every time new data appears, from Hubble, VLT, JWST to MeerKAT, it can be consistently described by top-of-the-line natural comet models, extremely volatile rich, hyperactive, complex nucleus structure. MeerKAT, the very telescope that caught the OH signal, also concluded that everything they saw is compatible with typical comet activity, no sign of an artificial beacon, no cosmic Morse code hidden inside. If we want a metaphor, we can say 3I Atlas is not a stealth submarine disguised as an ice chunk, but a real ice chunk, just a rare ancient one thrown from a very distant corner of the Milky Way. It does not break the laws of physics, but it sits right at the edge of everything we have ever seen, so every number, every image forces the comet statistics table to add new columns. And that is why, even though everything is natural, the story remains thrilling enough. A comet older than the solar system itself, hurtling through on a hyperbolic orbit, flaring up, changing colors, spewing gas to create an anti-tail, pushing itself without gassing, then quietly sailing away. It does not need to be an alien ship to be the main character of a cosmic detective movie. In the next part, we will pause examining the oddball behavior of 3I Atlas and zoom out, the era of new eyes and new ears. MeerKAT, Hubble, JWST, Vera Rubin, how all these machines made an old-timer light up like this, and more importantly, what they tell us about the future, when 3I Atlas may be only one of many interstellar visitors who will stop by in the coming decades.
By now, if you only looked at 3I Atlas in isolation, you might easily feel like the universe suddenly got generous. It casually tossed us an interstellar old-timer passing by, one that even knows how to emit signals for easy study. But in reality, the story is not luck at all. It is the result of an entirely new era of human eyes and ears, machines that scan the sky 24/7, never tire, and are anything but romantic. If we had to sum it up, the solar system is currently monitored by a cosmic surveillance council made of three big groups: optical and infrared eyes like JWST, Hubble and giant ground-based telescopes, radio ears like MeerKAT, and all-sky cameras like the Vera Rubin Observatory, LSST, that is about to reach full power. 3I Atlas sits right at the intersection of these three forces. If I had to pick an opening character for this section, I would choose MeerKAT, because it is the ear that heard the sound of water being torn apart from 3I Atlas. MeerKAT is an array of 64 dishes on a dry plateau in the Karoo, South Africa. Each dish is 13.5 meters across, linked by fiber optics, working together as one giant radio telescope with far higher resolution than any single dish. It was originally designed to observe hydrogen, large-scale structure of the Milky Way, black holes, pulsars, basically the macro stuff, but thanks to its extreme sensitivity from a few hundred megahertz to several GHz, it is sensitive enough to pick up the faint OH lines from the gas around an interstellar comet. When 3I Atlas was at its most active, researchers pointed MeerKAT at it and got exactly what they hoped for: OH absorption lines at 1665 and 1667 MHz buried in the radio noise of the Milky Way background. No alien decoder needed, just compared to the spectral line table, and they knew, around 3I Atlas there is a fairly thick hydroxyl cloud, meaning water is being strongly broken apart. The remarkable thing is, to measure such weak OH lines from a comet more than 1 AU away, you need an ear that simply did not exist in 1977. Back in the WOW era, Big Ear was a wonder, but its sensitivity, frequency resolution, and data processing looked like a transistor radio compared to a modern military-grade receiver when placed next to MeerKAT. That is why if a 3I Atlas-like object passed through back then, without shining brightly and optical-like, chances are we would have known nothing. And MeerKAT is still just a demo for a much bigger monster, the SKA Square Kilometre Array, a radio telescope network under construction in South Africa and Australia with a total collecting area of 1 square kilometre. When SKA is finished, hearing OH from interstellar comets and even more complex molecules in protoplanetary disks will be routine, like opening a weather app to check if it will rain. But ears alone are not enough. To find 3I Atlas where it was still just a faint dot, we needed the decidedly unromantic cameras, automated all-sky survey systems. 3I Atlas was discovered by ATLAS, the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Blast Alert System, a network of small but extremely diligent telescopes. Its original job is to survey the sky every night looking for objects that might hit Earth, giving us that last alert. It is not the glamorous kind of telescope that takes pretty pictures. It's the steady, persistent kind that shoots, compares, stacks, subtracts. Every night it records hundreds of images, compares them to the previous night, and any new or moving dot against the star background gets flagged and sent to astronomers. It was during one of those sweeps that on July 1, 2025, the ATLAS telescope in Chile spotted a new faint dot moving unlike a normal asteroid. After data went to the Minor Planet Center and a preliminary orbit was calculated, dynamicists realized eccentricity much greater than 1. A new interstellar object revealed itself, and thus it received the code 3I Atlas. And ATLAS is only part of an even bigger wave, the Vera C. Rubin Observatory in Chile with its LSST program, Legacy Survey of Space and Time.
When Rubin reaches full operation, it will image nearly the entire southern sky every 2 to 3 nights with a 3.2 gigapixel camera, each image so large it can weigh tens of gigabytes. The system is built to hunt everything that moves, from tiny asteroids to supernovae to faint objects barreling in from outside the solar system. Previous simulations predicted that with LSST, we could discover dozens, maybe hundreds of interstellar objects in the coming decades, instead of counting them on one hand like now. In other words, 3i Atlas may well be just the opening entry in a thick phone book of interstellar visitors that the 21st century will compile. Those are the ears and the cameras. Then come the infrared eyes, the one name impossible to skip, the James Webb Space Telescope, JWST. JWST did not discover 3i Atlas, but it is the tool that lets us dissect the infrared light of distant objects with detail Hubble could never reach. For bright nearby comets, JWST can measure absorption and emission lines of water, CO2, methane, complex organics just by looking at the infrared spectrum. In the case of 3i Atlas, even the few short JWST observations were enough to confirm what MeerKAT and ground telescopes suggested. It is a CO2-rich comet with water and familiar comet ingredients and no optical signs of artificial structure, no unusually flat surfaces, strange reflectivity, or weird heat signatures. Everything recorded matches the model of a rough ice dust clump being fried by the sun and outgassing chaotically. Add Hubble, VLT, Keck, Subaru, and we have a multi-wavelength council. Optical sees shape, coma, and tails, infrared measures temperature and molecules, radio measures OH and other species, dynamics calculates orbit and acceleration, all stitched together into a 3D multi-dimensional profile of 3i Atlas. Back in the Oumuamua days, we had only a few weeks, a little brightness data, and a slightly odd orbit. The whole planet argued for years. With 3i Atlas, the data trove is far richer, and that is why most of the scientific community can confidently say it is strange but not against physics. We do not need aliens to explain it. More importantly, 3i Atlas is like the first real test for humanity's entire cosmic radar system. Wide-field surveys like Atlas catch it while it is still very faint. Big optical telescopes confirm the orbit, measure brightness, track activity. MeerKAT hears the OH to know there is water. Hubble, JWST, and others look across wavelengths to decode composition. Solar observatories, SOHO Stereo, watch it fly past the sun's neighborhood like a moth in a furnace. Everything worked almost ideally. A strange object arrives from afar. The system detects, analyzes, tracks, classifies, then lets it go. Next time when a 4i, 5i, 6i comes along, maybe smaller, faster, or even weirder, we will do even better. And that is the key point of this section. 3i Atlas is not just telling its own story, it is telling our story. About how humanity has gone from staring at the stars with the naked eye to building an entire artificial network of eyes, ears, and brains around the planet, capable of spotting and interrogating an ice chunk from the other side of the Milky Way. The question now is no longer, how many interstellar objects are out there? Because the answer is definitely very, very many. The real question is, among the countless ice dust chunks, how many carry something more than just water and nickel? Something like complex organic molecules, amino acids, even the seeds of primitive biology. Something that, over billions of years, could scatter chemical seeds onto newly born planets, including Earth. That is the door leading to the next part of the story, when we look at 3i Atlas not just as an interstellar ice chunk, but as an ancient delivery ship carrying water and chemicals, intentionally or not passing through star systems, sprinkling its cargo onto newly born worlds. And that is where the idea of panspermia, seeding life from the stars, steps onto the stage.
If up to now you have seen 3i Atlas as a fascinating physics mystery with its retrograde orbit, anti-tail, strange nickel, OH broadcasting, then in this part let me invite you to shift perspective a little. Think of it as an ancient delivery ship. The ship has no logo, no tracking number, no invoice. It is simply an ice dust lump formed in a place very far away, long before Earth even existed. It was ejected from its home system, drifted through the Milky Way for billions of years, passing one region, skimming another, and by pure chance crossed the little neighborhood called the solar system. And like every comet, it carries water. Not just water, but also CO, CO2, simple organic molecules, cyanide. All the things that laboratories on Earth have shown are excellent raw ingredients for cooking up prebiotic chemistry. If you mix them with a warm rocky surface, a bit of energy from the sun, lightning tides, and enough time, you can start building increasingly complex molecular chains. From simple carbon fragments to amino acids, from amino acids to long chains that look like the precursors of RNA and DNA. That is the soul of an idea with a very poetic name, panspermia, seeds everywhere. The idea does not claim that life on Earth fell from the sky fully assembled like a ready-made Lego set. It only says, perhaps a portion of the raw materials needed to build life, water, carbon, organic molecules, were not entirely made on Earth, but were shipped here by comets, meteorites, cosmic dust. Picture the newborn Earth, a hot planet constantly bombarded by rocks, ice, and debris left over from the formation of the solar system. Each impact was a catastrophic explosion, but at the same time a delivery. Water from comets vaporized, condensed into rain. Organic molecules in the fragments were heated, mixed into the primordial soil and oceans. Rain fell, oceans cooled, and gradually in some small corner, chemistry started playing its building block game. Today we have found amino acids and complex organic molecules in many meteorites that fell to Earth, in the gas of comets that probes have flown past, and the dust clouds around young stars. All these pieces say the same thing. The universe is not stingy, it continuously produces those basic chemical packages everywhere. So what does 3i Atlas mean in this picture? Until now, when we talked about panspermia, most of us thought on a family scale, comets within the same star system sprinkling water and organics onto its own planets. But 3I Atlas is a living proof of intersystem delivery, an ice dust lump born outside the solar system carrying the chemical recipe of somewhere else wandering into our neighborhood. If one 3I Atlas can drift in here, then over billions of years, there may have been millions, billions of others, smaller, darker, unnoticed, that cut across the solar system, sometimes colliding with planets or moons, or simply passing close enough for their dust and gas to rain down somewhere. When MeerKAT heard the OH sound from 3I Atlas, it was not just saying, there is water there. If you listen carefully between the lines, it was also saying, this water is not local, yet it is still the water we know. Chemistry does not discriminate by origin. Water, CO2, cyanide from another star system, if it falls onto some young planet, will behave exactly like solar system water and CO2. It will still make rain, still dissolve minerals, still lubricate reactions, still help carbon make friends with carbon. That is when people start asking a question that sounds both cool and a little chilling. If basic panspermia is true, meaning the universe constantly scatters prebiotic material via comets and meteorites, then is life something rare and difficult, or is it almost inevitable when you put rock plus water plus organics plus energy plus time into one giant mixer called the Milky Way? And if comets deliver chemical cargo not just within one system but between star systems, then it is very possible that we are not entirely made on Earth. The water in the oceans, the carbon in your body, the nitrogen in the air you breathe. Part of it may once have belonged to another star, another planet, some dust cloud thousands of light years away and billions of years ago. At this point, someone will ask, so are we aliens? The scientific answer, if you turn the drama down a bit, is we are products of the universe, like everything else. Life on Earth still evolved here under the unique conditions of this place, under this sky, with a geological and biological history that does not repeat anywhere else. But the raw ingredients used to cook that story, water, carbon, organics, may well have come from many places, many times, many factories in the Milky Way. Put more beautifully, we are both children of Earth and distant grandchildren of faraway stars, raised on molecules that once wandered through other star systems. 3I Atlas is just one old man caught red-handed in the act while countless relatives passed through here long before anyone was smart enough to point a telescope at the sky. When we look at 3I Atlas through this lens, the story no longer stops at, is it an alien ship? A better question, and also a slightly scarier one, is if the universe really has an intergalactic life ingredient delivery service, then how alone are we? Is Earth the only time those packages fell in exactly the right place at the right moment to create a biosphere, or somewhere else in the Milky Way are there other worlds also asking the exact same question? Is anyone out there? Science as of now remains perfectly neutral. We have no direct evidence of life elsewhere, but every time we discover a comet like 3I Atlas, every time we measure water and organics, every time we see dust and ice being flung from one star system to another, we have to adjust our intuition a little. The universe is anything but stingy with the ingredients of life. Here 3I Atlas plays a very elegant role. It is the first example that the building blocks of life can travel not just within one system, but between many different star systems. Even if full-blown panspermia, meaning seeding with actual living microbes, turns out to be wrong, chemical panspermia alone, the wide dispersal of organic molecules, is enough to say, we were born in a universe that tends to scatter seeds rather than lock everything in a safe. And right at this point, the story starts to leave the realm of dry science and gently touch the realm of emotion and philosophy. If the ingredients in your blood, your brain, your heart originated from stars that died billions of years ago, if the water you drink was once comet ice that slammed into the primitive Earth, if distant cousins of 3I Atlas once contributed a tiny part to setting the chemical stage for life, then every time you look up at the night sky, perhaps the most fitting feeling is not, we are so small, but we are actually home. It's just that this home is much bigger than Earth. In the final part of the video, we will pull everything together from the 4 a.m. phone call, the OH signal of water, the strange but natural behaviors of 3I Atlas, to the panspermia story and the origin of life, and then we will ask one simple question that is anything but easy to answer. The next time another interstellar visitor drops by, will it only bring the sound of water being torn apart, or will someone somewhere finally say hello?
Friday, December 19, 2025. Somewhere in Earth's orbit, 3I Atlas passes its closest point to us during the entire visit. Close by cosmic standards, meaning about 170 million miles, nearly twice the distance between Earth and the Sun. It waves at us with a distant glide and then continues outward, never looking back. From that moment, 3I Atlas enters its departure phase. It will keep cutting through the solar system, heading outward, crossing near Jupiter's orbit in the spring of 2026, and then gradually fade into the darkness between the stars. Along the way, NASA spacecraft and telescopes from Hubble and James Webb to other missions will quietly keep watching, grabbing the last scraps of data before this interstellar visitor disappears from view forever. 3I Atlas came and it left us not just graphs, spectra, and a few blurry blue images on science websites. It left a very strange feeling. For the first time, humanity truly heard the sound of water from another star system. For the first time, we have direct evidence that ice dust packages from outside the solar system carry chemistry familiar enough to serve as raw material for life. It does not answer the question, is anyone out there, but it whispers another one. What makes you is not exclusively Earth's property. So perhaps the most important question now is not Was 3i Atlas a disguised alien spacecraft? But rather, what kind of universe do you want to believe in? A cold, empty universe where life is a one-off accident, or a universe filled with ice dust seeds like 3i Atlas quietly sowing chemistry everywhere? The next time another interstellar visitor drops by, who knows, will the signal we catch still be just the sound of water being torn apart, or will it finally be an actual hello? If you feel somewhere out there we are not entirely alone, please leave a like on this video. And now it's your turn. After everything you just heard, in your eyes, is 3i Atlas simply an ancient chunk of ice or an indirect ship that delivered the ingredients that allowed us to be here? Drop your answer in the comments below. I'll be reading every single one.